What's really happening in Satanism? Right now. Industry news. November 2025. Intro. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit subscribe. We talk about what's actually happening in Satanism, not the sensationalized garbage the mainstream media feeds you. Today, we're doing something different. I've compiled a full industry briefing, yes, like the kind corporate analysts make, but for us, for the satanic community. Because we deserve to know what's really going on, what stories actually matter, and where our movements are heading. We're covering the past 7 days of real verified developments, from major legal battles in Oklahoma to the Satanic Temple's new campaign, from holiday display controversies to the debates fracturing our community online, from academic conferences finally taking us seriously to the generational shift that's changing everything. This is November 2025. This is what's happening in Satanism right now. Let's get into it. The Oklahoma Supreme Court case. First up, Oklahoma, and this one's big. The Oklahoma Supreme Court just heard arguments in a case that could literally reshape how religious displays work on government property nationwide. Here's the situation. Oklahoma has or had, depending on how you count it, a 10 Commandments monument on the state capitol grounds. Christian monument, right there on public, taxpayer-funded property. And the Satanic Temple said, cool, if you're allowing religious displays, we want equal representation. Now, we've seen this play before. This is TST's primary legal strategy. And honestly, it works. They're not trying to put up Baphomet statues because they necessarily want Baphomet statues everywhere. They're using the equal access argument to force the state into an impossible position. Either allow all religious displays, including ours, or allow none. And usually, states choose none. They take the Christian monuments down rather than share space with satanic symbols, which is exactly the point. But Oklahoma is fighting it. The arguments happened November 12th through 14th, and here's what makes this fascinating. The state is trying to argue that the 10 Commandments monument is historical rather than religious, that it represents heritage, not establishment of religion. The Satanic Temple's counter-argument? If it's truly non-religious, then our displays should be equally acceptable. If it is religious, then you're violating the Establishment Clause by privileging Christianity. It's elegant, it's legally sound, and it's pissing people off, which means it's working. Why does this matter for us? Because the decision here sets precedent. If Oklahoma wins, it opens the door for states to justify Christian displays as historical, while denying us equal access. If TST wins, it strengthens the church-state separation that protects all of us, including minority religions. This isn't just about statues, it's about whether pluralism actually means pluralism, or whether it just means Christianity plus tokens. Decision is pending. We're watching. TST's Protect Children project. Moving on, the Satanic Temple just launched something called the Protect Children project. Announced November 13th. This is an expanded campaign focusing on bodily autonomy education, and this is key opposition to corporal punishment in schools. Now, if you've been following TST, you know they've been heavy on the abortion rights angle for the past few years. Religious exemption arguments, ritual abortion frameworks, the whole thing. And that's been effective in certain contexts. But this is a strategic pivot. They're broadening the message to children's rights more generally. Bodily autonomy, yes, but also, should schools be allowed to physically hit children? Should parents have unilateral authority to make irreversible decisions about their kids' bodies? And here's why this matters for the satanic community specifically. It's reframing our public image. For decades, we've been accused of harming children. The Satanic Panic of the 80s, the ritual abuse mythology, all of it we've been cast as the villains in children's stories, literally. So when a major satanic organization says, actually, we're the ones trying to protect kids from violence, from authoritarian control, from violations of their autonomy, it flips the script entirely. Is this going to change minds overnight? No. There are people who will never see Satanists as anything but evil. But for the persuadable middle, for people who are disillusioned with Christian authoritarianism, who care about actual child welfare, this is powerful messaging. It's also smart tactically, because it's harder to argue against. You can debate abortion until you're blue in the face, but should teachers be allowed to hit children? That's a clearer moral question for a lot of people. Multiple states are being targeted with this campaign. We don't have the full rollout details yet, but expect to see this become a major part of TST's public advocacy work going forward. Whether you agree with TST's activist approach or not, and I know many of you don't, you have to admit they're good at generating attention and forcing conversations. The Iowa holiday display controversy. All right, let's talk Iowa, because this is becoming an annual tradition at this point, and not the fun kind. November 15th and 16th, the Satanic Temple of Iowa installed a holiday display in the state capitol rotunda, right alongside the Christian nativity scenes, the menorahs, whatever else is there. And predictably, people lost their minds. Protests, counter-protests, church groups organizing, local politicians condemning it, the whole circus. Here's the thing, this is the same argument as Oklahoma, just in miniature. If the state allows religious holiday displays in government buildings, they have to allow all religions. That's what pluralism means. That's what the First Amendment means. But every year we do this dance. Christian displays go up, no problem. Jewish displays go up, usually no problem, though let's not pretend there's no anti-Semitism involved. But the moment a satanic display appears, it's treated like a national emergency. Why? Because our presence forces people to confront what religious freedom actually means. It's easy to support religious freedom when it's just different flavors of the Abrahamic traditions. It's harder when it includes religions that explicitly reject Christian moral frameworks. And look, I know some of you are thinking, this is just trolling. This is just to make Christians angry. Sure, there's definitely an element of that. TST isn't shy about provocation. But it's also a legitimate expression of religious identity. Satanists do have winter celebrations. We do have holidays. We do have the same right to public acknowledgement as everyone else. And the anger, the outrage, proves the point. It reveals that religious freedom, for a lot of people, really means freedom for my religion. Our presence makes that hypocrisy visible. So yes, Iowa is a flashpoint. It happens every year, and it will keep happening until either A, all religious displays are removed from government buildings, or B, people accept that pluralism includes us. I'm not holding my breath for option B. The commercialization debate. Now, let's get into something that's causing serious division in the community right now. Commercialization. This is blowing up on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube comments, occult forums everywhere, and it's getting heated. Here's the debate. Is the commercialization of Satanism and left-hand path practices making these traditions more accessible? Or is it diluting authenticity and turning spirituality into capitalism? On one side, you have younger practitioners, a lot of Gen Z, saying, look, not everyone can afford rare grimoires or expensive ritual tools. Mass-produced items make practice accessible to people who've been economically excluded from occultism. Gatekeeping based on money is elitist bullshit. On the other side, you have people, often older practitioners, but not exclusively, saying, when everything becomes a product, when altars become aesthetic Instagram posts, when practice becomes performative content, we lose the depth, we lose the danger, we lose what makes this actually mean something. And honestly, both sides have valid points. Let's be real. Occultism has historically been economically gatekept. Rare books, initiatory groups with fees, materials that cost serious money if you weren't middle class or higher, you were largely excluded. The internet and mass production have democratized access in unprecedented ways. But also, there is something lost when practice becomes content. When your ritual is designed for TikTok views, when you're buying pre-packaged satanic starter kits on Amazon, when the aesthetic matters more than the experience. This isn't unique to Satanism. Every alternative spiritual community is dealing with this. Witchcraft, paganism, all of it. But it hits differently for us because Satanism has always been about rebellion, about rejection of consumerism, about standing against mainstream culture. So when Satanism itself becomes a marketable brand, when Hot Topic sells pentagrams and Hail Satan becomes a meme you can buy on a t-shirt, what does that mean for us? I don't have an answer. I don't think there is a simple answer. But here's what I'll say. If your practice is genuine, if it changes you, if it challenges you, if it means something beyond the performance, then the tools don't matter that much. Whether you bought your altar cloth on Etsy or sewed it yourself, what matters is what you do with it. But if you're just collecting aesthetics, if it's all surface, yeah, that's empty, and we should call that out. The conversation continues. There's no resolution, but it's a conversation worth having. The generational leadership shift. Let's talk about something that's not making headlines, but is absolutely transforming the community. Generational shift in leadership. We're seeing millennials and Gen Z practitioners assuming prominent roles in established satanic organizations, and they're bringing completely different approaches. The older generation, the people who built these organizations, came up in a different world, pre-internet mostly, when Satanism was genuinely countercultural, when admitting you were a Satanist could cost you your job, your family, everything. That generation built defensive structures. They emphasized philosophical rigor, gatekeeping, provocation as shock tactic. LaVeyan's Church of Satan embodies this. Individualist, social Darwinist, anti-collectivist. The younger generation? They grew up with the internet. They're more comfortable with identity politics, with community organizing, with social justice frameworks. They see Satanism as compatible with activism, with mutual aid, with collective liberation. And this is creating tension. You see it in the online debates. You see it in organizational splits. You see it in the rhetoric shifting from might is right to bodily autonomy and consent. Some examples. Regional satanic temple chapters are increasingly run by younger leaders who are way more active on TikTok and Instagram than on traditional forums. The messaging is shifting toward inclusivity language, talking about diversity, accessibility, intersectionality, and the older guard is not always thrilled. There are accusations of wokeness infiltrating Satanism. There are accusations of moral panic from the other direction. It's messy. But here's the thing. This is healthy. This is how movements evolve or die. If Satanism can't adapt to new generations, if it stays locked in 1966 or 1975 or whenever, it becomes a historical curiosity, a museum piece. But if it can evolve, if it can maintain its core principles while allowing new interpretations, new applications, new voices, then it stays alive. I'm not saying every change is good. I'm not saying there's nothing worth preserving. But I am saying that the "this isn't how we used to do it" argument has killed more movements than it's saved. Watch this space. The generational transition is going to define what Satanism looks like for the next 30 years. Academic legitimization. Okay, last major topic. Academics are finally taking us seriously. November 11th through 14th, the American Academy of Religion held its annual conference. This is the big conference for religious studies scholars, and this year, multiple papers on Satanism. Not Satanism as moral panic, not Satanism as cultural threat, but Satanism as a legitimate subject of serious academic inquiry. Papers on modern satanic movements as case studies in contemporary religious identity formation, analysis of the Satanic Temple as a new religious movement, examinations of theistic, satanic theology. And this is happening at major universities too. Graduate students are writing theses on Satanism. Courses are being offered specifically examining satanic movements. Why does this matter? Because for decades, the only people studying Satanism were either A. Christians writing scare literature, or B. Criminologists investigating non-existent ritual abuse. The actual scholarship was thin, sensationalized, or outright hostile. But now we're seeing a generation of religious studies scholars who approach Satanism the same way they'd approach any other new religious movement, with ethnography, with participant observation, with actual intellectual rigor. This produces better understanding. It produces more accurate representation, and it trains the next generation of experts who will be consulted when media outlets cover us. It also legitimizes the field itself. When you can get a PhD studying satanic movements, when you can publish in peer-reviewed journals about theistic satanic theology, that's not fringe anymore. That's established scholarship. Does this mean universities are promoting Satanism? No, that's not how academic study works. But it does mean that Satanism is being treated as a serious phenomenon, worthy of serious attention. And frankly, it's about time. Conclusion. All right, that's the briefing. Let's recap what we've covered. Major legal battles: Oklahoma could set national precedent for religious displays. Strategic pivots. TST is broadening beyond abortion to children's rights generally. Annual controversies: Iowa demonstrates we're still fighting for basic pluralism. Internal debates. Commercialization and authenticity are tearing us apart online. Leadership evolution. Generational shifts are changing tactics and messaging. Scholarly legitimacy. Academia is finally treating us as worthy of serious study. So what does all this mean? It means Satanism is at a crossroads. We're more visible than ever. We're more organized than ever. We're more diverse than ever. But we're also more fractured. The divisions between activist and philosophical approaches, between theistic and atheistic practitioners, between generations and tactics, these are real. And the external threats are real too. We're seeing potential satanic panic, 2.0 inches rhetoric in conservative states. We're seeing legislative attempts to restrict religious freedom that will affect us. So where do we go from here? I think we need to get better at internal coalition building while maintaining healthy debate. We don't all have to agree on tactics or theology, but we do need to recognize that attacks on any satanic community are attacks on all of us. We need to support the legal battles, even if we don't always agree with the provocations. We need to have the hard conversations about commercialization and authenticity. We need to let younger voices lead while preserving institutional knowledge. And we need to keep doing what we do best, challenging authority, defending autonomy, and refusing to bow. That's it for today. If you found this valuable, let me know in the comments. Should I make this a monthly series? What stories did I miss? What do you want to see covered? Hit that subscribe button. Share this with your coven, your Discord, your group chat. Until next time, stay informed, stay strong, stay satanic. Hail yourself.